So that's what I would say.
Those are great words. Thank you so much, Pavi. It's been a pleasure re-talking with you. Since the last time I met you and I came to know of you, I think I've known a lot more. I see you as a person who sees opportunity in challenges, and I think your words about believing in yourself and making a difference, I think they hit home. That's what Toronto chapter is all about as well. I'm glad we have you today here to be with us and give us your inspirational words. So now, as I promised, we're going to go into a surprise segment. I'm going to bid bye to this interview. I'm going to hand over the mic to the MC here, and we're going to open the question to the audience.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this chap deserves a big round of applause, don't they? Now this is what we're going to do, because we don't have the whole evening, but I'm going to give any three people, the first three to stand up to ask a question, and one question each, okay? So any three of you who would like to ask a question, please stand up. So, are you standing up, gentlemen?
Yeah,
perfect, thank you very much. Your second, your first, your second, and your third. Okay, thank you very much. So we've got you in. I'll ask the volunteer to come around with the mic for you, and then you can throw in a question. Check.
Hi, thank you. So Maggie, first off, great event. Thank you very much for inviting me on behalf of Ascent Canada. Pavi, question for you. Fantastic career. You and I have had many conversations about your career. What role has mentorship versus sponsorship played in your career?
Mentorship has been, and sponsorship have been really, really important in my career. And I'll sort of take you through a little sort of story which sort of brings it home. When I was in my mid-20s, I joined Grand Metropolitan, and I actually joined a role that was extremely challenging. The previous three people in that had that role had all been fired because they hadn't been able to get it under control. And the attitude that I go in with when I take a job is that if I fail at something, the one thing it's not going to be down to is lack of effort. So I actually went in and did, sort of everything I could, and within 6 months we had the sort of role under control. I got noticed because obviously there had been history here, and I got noticed by the chief executive of that particular division. I then went, and he began to mentor me, through the sort of next period, and I got promoted within that division very, very quickly. What then happened is after a year or two, and I was about 29 at that time, just turned 29, he went on to become the CEO of another division in the group. And here I was, still at a pretty junior level, and he phoned me up and he said, I want you to come and be the CFO of the division. But you have to go and see HR. I went to meet HR and they said, you're not ready, you're too young to do this type of role because even all your direct reports would be older than you. Sponsorship, he told them that I absolutely could do it. And then what happened was at 29 I became the CFO of a £2 billion division of Grand Metropolitan PLC. And from there, he moved to another division, took me with him. So mentorship and sponsorship, and there have been many instances in my career where people have come along at the right time and changed the trajectory of my career. And one of the most important things has been, people sort of sometimes shy away from joining a group. He was the one that said to me when the group approached me and sort of said, look, we want you to come to the centre. He sort of said, look, Pavi, I can sing your praises forever, but if you're going to get to the top of this company, these are the decision makers. So go to the group and show them how good you are. So I would sort of say right the way through my career, mentorship and sponsorship has been important. I have a lot of people today that I mentor, and I think it's a very, very important thing to do for me to sort of give something back.
Great question. Thank you. Thank you very much for a equally great answer. So just to save the volunteer from running around, I know I said yes, question number 2. your permission, we'll ask the gentleman standing up to go ahead with your question number 2. Yes? Thank you.
Thanks, Pavi, for sharing your experience. Yeah. Just one quick question about, I understood that you have mainly into the finance function, so you grew up your career in the finance function. But later on, you moved as a CEO. So there's another one thing you mentioned that when you moved to the headquarters in one of the British companies, you saw people working and you see the difference of culture and you said, okay, I believed in myself and you said that I can do that. So I just want, if you can shed some light that how you moved from, what is the experience or how did you move from CFO to CEO?
Yeah, it's interesting actually because I had many opportunities to move into general management as I was going through my career. And, I thought to myself, well, let me get to the CFO role first because, when I was at Diageo, it was clear to me that I was on the path to becoming the group CFO, but the role wasn't available, so I moved on. The way that I did the finance job was always much, much broader than the finance role. If you had gone into any of the companies where I'd been the group CFO and sort of said, who's the number 2 in this company? They would have said it's Pavi. And the reality is, because my sort of sense was that even though I was called CFO, my main mandate was much, much broader than that. I was a business partner to the chief executive, and therefore we were interchangeable in terms of running the organization and running the company. We were a strong team, the two of us. But even if he didn't turn up, for operating reviews or whatever, there was no doubt that I would lead all of that. So, and Diageo was, what I would call a truly world-class finance function. They expected their finance people to be business people, not just people that were simply going to do the books or do the numbers. And so I had a training right the way through, which was saying that, if you're the CFO of a division or whatever it is, you're the business partner to the CEO, and we expect you to operate like the chief operating officer would in many different organizations. So the transition for me, when Nortel approached me and sort of said, look, the CEO has to go, and Pavi, we want you to take over, it wasn't a very difficult, decision, and I obviously went to Weston. But I think that what you have to do is, as you're doing the CFO job, think about the breadth and the influence that you can have across the organization. And I sort of, one of the things I often say to people, that are aspiring and growing through the finance function, my sort of attitude is that, what you should do is you should absolutely not ask for permission to do things. You should ask for forgiveness if you overstep the mark. And that's what I've tried to do in my business career. So, in many of these organizations, I was almost like the deputy CEO anyway.
Thank you. That is a wholesome answer. And now for the last question of the day. Yes?
Thank you, Manny and Pavi, for this opportunity. When you mentioned about that, what are the core values to build a world-class finance organization, and I noticed that one of the value was to build a strong business partnership acumen. And at my career stage, and I see that we are good in numbers, we are good in operations maybe, but when you talk about the business finance partnering, that's where I see a challenge around me. So what are the tips, according to your experience, which you want to give to elevate that mindset from typical accounting, typical number game player to a business or business player and get closer to business, provide the value from the finance perspective?
Yeah. It's a very good question, and I've spent years on this in terms of, talking to finance organizations about how do you truly become a business partner. Because at the end of the day, in terms of as you're a finance professional, everyone values the role that you play in terms of getting the books and records correct in an organization. But obviously, as I've sort of said, finance for me is way beyond that. The most important thing in terms of business partnership is you've got to be seen to be adding value to the organization. And so, when you are in, meetings or, organizations, I would absolutely encourage you to extend the remit beyond finance. They may be talking about things, that are not even related to the function, but you have to begin to express a view in terms of, well, this is what I think. I mean, one of the sort of things when I talk to and mentor a lot of Asian people is that people are reluctant to say what they really think. Yeah, so you're sitting in this meeting, there may be a whole bunch of senior people around you, and people hesitate in terms of, actually putting their point of view forward. But it's only by doing that that people will see you've actually got the intellect, you've got the sort of thought process, the logic in terms of putting your argument forward. So I would encourage you to sort of speak up and say what you really think, rather than letting the meeting, go on around you. And when people see that you are really truly beginning to add value to things, they'll begin to suck you in more and more. Secondly, what I would say to you is go absolutely beyond the function. So if you're in a business meeting, express a view about what you think the business should be doing. And I started doing that very early on in my career, and this is why people would notice me. And then all I'd sort of see is the doors opening, and people would be sort of saying, well, why don't we get Pavi's view on this, or why don't we get Pavi's view on that? But that business partnering is absolutely critical in terms of really exploiting the role of finance.
Brilliant, I love that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, do you think that was nice? A big round of applause, please. A big round of applause to this panel.